Attempted assassination and assassination is the most extreme form of the politics of enemies. And the politics of enemies is the enemy of democracy. You and I, if we know each other and we're here on the main channel, but I'm sure it's virtually the same beautiful community, you and I know that we like to try to be each other's political opponents in democracy. Because if you and I are opponents, we're playing tennis, then I want to beat you within the rules, but I don't want to chuck my shoes and my tennis racket at you. We're looking for the politics of opponents, not for the politics of friends and enemies. Unfortunately, the trouble with assassinations and attempted assassinations is not just that they are the extreme end of the politics of enemies, they also have a disinhibiting effect to make whatever level of politics of enemies we have worse. And so this is really important. It's everybody's responsibility in a situation like this, whether you're American or not, because situations like this will arise in your democracy, to be 5% more responsible in your discourse and to be 5% less existential in your discourse. Because when you push your discourse to be too existential, it's me or it's the other side, and everything is on the line, right? This has the self-perpetuating effect of making the conflict between your side and the other side worse. So what does this mean in practice? It means in practice that when an event like this occurs, it's important that a society tries as much as possible to achieve universal condemnation. That there are no ifs, that there are no buts, that there is just the understanding that there is never liberatory credentials to political violence. It's never good. It's never okay. It's never liberating, no matter who does it, no matter what the issues are. Bottom line, no ifs, no buts. And that means that even if privately you don't feel comfortable being so clear about this because you're caught up in just hating the other side, you've got to try to get over that, because the worst thing for a democracy to experience is political violence without universal condemnation. Privately, that means you've got to be 5% more responsible. It also means you've got to be 5% more responsible at getting other people around you to be responsible. And then we need two things from politicians. We need universal condemnation from politicians without ifs or buts. And we need that to take institutionalized forms. It cannot just be something on Instagram, something on YouTube, something on Twitter. There needs to be institutionalized political condemnation. And somebody who has been enormously and justly criticized recently, President Biden, did manage to come out and do a reasonably good speech, making it clear, that this is universally unacceptable and that when it happens, it's a no-no, and you have to put all differences aside in the condemnation. The trouble, of course, is, and this is what's bad about events like this, is that when violence occurs, it begets violence. And so you've got to be of the understanding that when bad things like that happen, they make other bad things more likely. And you've got to avoid that as much as possible. But there is, one of the evils of this sort of thing is that it begets more of the same sort of thing. Now, in terms of the Russians and the Chinese, they enjoy, because you all know that um, we can't really be touched by the Russians and the Chinese when it comes to generating new conflicts between us. They can't do that really. But what they can do quite well is come in and exaggerate the conflicts we already have between each other. And this is another opportunity for them to do that. But the final remark of bringing it all together, apart from saying again, universal condemnation, universal condemnation, political violence, it's never okay. It's the height of the worst type of politics for democracy, the politics of enemies. But apart from that, yes, this is trouble for US democracy. It's trouble. But that does not mean, and you know what I'm about to say next, that democracy is going to collapse, because we're coming out of the bay into open water. It will get bumpy. Bumpiness does not mean that we are sinking. This is really a universal conversation. 30% of the audience on the main channel here and on the chat channel is from the USA. But I think this is a universal feature of politics. It's more dangerous in a country like the United States, where people are armed to the teeth. But it's a universal feature of politics when it gets polarized. So, this is my introduction. If you're watching this later, the video may be cut off at the question point.